Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today into specifically the first couple chapters of Attila Horvath's book, The Journey. I wish I knew this before I was 21, so if you're, past that age, like myself,
Yeah.
maybe you feel the same way. But
Right.
Horvath really kind of shakes things up right from the beginning.
Oh, for sure. He challenges a lot of those assumptions we have,
Yeah.
about education, success, all that.
It's like he's saying, hey, what if everything you thought you knew about this was kind of wrong?
Yeah. And in that first chapter, chapter 1, he really goes after the whole traditional education system, says it can lead to a distorted worldview.
Ah, interesting. So not just that it's not the only way, but that it might actually be like leading us astray.
Yeah, it's more than just saying, hey, there are other paths. He's saying that this whole system, this focus on fitting into a mold, lawyer, doctor, whatever, it might be preventing us from finding our real potential, our own genius.
It makes you think, right? Like how much of what we're pushed towards is really about us as individuals versus what society needs.
Exactly. And it's interesting putting this into historical context because this whole standardized system is pretty recent, really.
Oh, right. You're talking about how for a long time education was more, apprenticeships and things?
Yeah, tailored to your skills,
Yeah.
what you were good at. So that shift to mass education, we needed that in a lot of ways, but maybe there was a trade-off.
A loss of that individuality. And Horvath even uses art as an example. Says even something creative gets evaluated subjectively. Like how do you measure something that's personal, expressive? I've definitely struggled with that.
That tension between fitting in and standing out, it leads right into chapter 2, where Horvath just comes out and says that each person is fundamentally important because they're unique.
Which, okay, on the surface, that sounds like, a nice motivational poster.
Right.
But he actually connects it to, like, literature, philosophy, science. How so much of what we consider great comes back to the individual human experience.
It is. And thinking bigger picture, there's a concept Carl Jung called individuation, like peeling back the layers, expectations, family stuff to get to the real you.
Individuation, I like that. And speaking of getting real, that William James quote Horvath uses about changing your life by changing your attitude.
Oh, powerful stuff.
That really resonated with me.
It does speak to, taking control, which is Horvath's message. But he's honest about the work involved, too.
Oh, yeah, that brutal reality section in chapter 2, he doesn't sugarcoat it.
He doesn't. But then to balance that out, there's the pearls before swine idea.
Yes.
Making sure we're ready for those moments of insight.
Because what good's the insight if it falls on deaf ears?
Exactly. And that leads to another big point. The difference between traditional education and what he calls self-education. But we'll get into that more in part 2. So that self-education thing probably got folks wondering, how do you actually do that?
Yeah, it's one thing to say, go learn. But Horvath, does he give us some clues in these chapters?
He does, yeah. A big one that stands out is understanding ourselves better. He even talks about those, what did Jung call them? Archetypes.
Archetypes, right. Like universal patterns, right? The hero, the rebel, all that.
Exactly. Horvath says, figuring out your own archetype, that's key to unlocking your potential. It shows you your strengths, what drives you.
Starting to see how it all ties together. And didn't he quote Emerson, too? Something about dismissing our own thoughts, only to see them later in, works of genius.
He did, yeah. It's like we have these brilliant ideas inside, but we haven't learned to trust them or how to, nurture them.
Which takes us right back to the pearls before swine thing.
Yeah.
If we're not aware, those aha moments, they just pass us by.
And that's where self-education comes in, building up that capacity to take in new information, make connections that maybe others miss.
So not just reading more or classes, but approaching learning differently with the goal of, personal growth.
You got it. It's training your mind to see those patterns, to become more pearl-ready, I guess you could say.
I love that. But practically speaking, how do we do that?
Well, Horvath emphasizes being open to new ideas, even if they challenge what you think you know.
So being okay with being wrong. And actively looking for knowledge that, I guess, resonates with who you are.
That's a big part of it, yeah. It's about taking charge of your own learning journey.
And it's a journey, not a destination, right? He uses examples, athletes, artists, even spiritual people. Becoming truly great takes constant work.
And that goes for self-education, too. It's not a one-time thing. It's a lifelong pursuit.
So here's the challenge then. How do we start that journey? What are the actual steps?
Those are great questions and ones we should definitely keep thinking about. But for now, let's shift gears a bit. There's another aspect of this self-education thing I want to touch on.
So we're back, still digging into this self-education idea. And I'm hooked on this. Like, how do we actually make it happen? It's one thing to say, go learn, but to make it matter, that's the tricky part, right?
It is. And Horvath uses that image, remember? The person who dismisses the cure for cancer because they just weren't ready to see it.
Yeah, that was powerful. Like, we got to train ourselves to spot the pearls, but how?
It's about being willing to learn, even when it means, like, unlearning stuff, questioning what you think you know.
Being open to new ideas, even if they make you uncomfortable?
Exactly. It's not just about, like, information overload. It's about developing that inner sense, what's truly valuable for you as a person.
Which I guess that's part of what Jung meant by individuation, right? Becoming aware of your own biases so you can choose what really aligns with who you are.
Right on. And it makes me think we get stuck in these echo chambers, people who agree with us all the time. Maybe part of self-education is breaking out of that.
Intentionally seeking out different viewpoints, ideas that challenge you.
Yeah, because true individuation, it goes beyond just knowing yourself.
Yeah. There's more.
There is. It's about using that knowledge to shape the world around you, leaving a mark that's truly yours, taking those pearls and making something beautiful.
Yeah. That's inspiring stuff. Hopefully our listeners are feeling fired up, ready to start their own journey.
Yeah.
You know, not just figuring themselves out, but using that to make a difference.
As Horvath says, the journey matters just as much as where you end up. So keep exploring, keep learning, and just keep being awesome.
Love that. And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into these first 2 chapters of the journey. I wish I knew this before I was 21. Thanks for joining us, everyone.